You are tuned in to What Up Radio. Please note that the views and opinions expressed are of and not of Lady J Media. Thank you and enjoy the show.
Hello. Hi, everybody. I hope everybody's been having a good week. I hope that no one got too bad off through the rain. Did anybody deal with rain like I dealt with last night? It was kind of crazy, but I did notice the cicadas got quiet. Isn't that interesting? They got quiet in the rain. So today I want to talk about hanging on through trials. So as we all know, 2020 was an interesting year in that we dealt with a pandemic, a lockdown, and a virus that for a while, the science people, the medical community didn't know what to do with. And we started losing people, and people were just going. It was amazing. I lost a few family members myself. I lost at least two cousins, I'm sorry, a mother and a son. The son was first, in his 40s. I grew up with him. And then his mother, who had been in my life all my childhood. So it was kind of hard. And they were in Arizona. So I couldn't even go to be with the rest of the family dealing with that. But those of you who dealt with loss, I feel for you. I really, really do, because it was a situation where we had absolutely no control over. And thankfully, those of us who have God in our lives have the hope that we'll see them again. And we also have the hope that from this point, if we do lose our life, we have him. We can rest in his arms, and we can see his face when we get to heaven. So hanging on through trials. I thought about this over the years. I've thought about this a lot, and I'm going to tell you why. But let me start with this little point. Don't fool yourself. Life is not easy. There will be pain, physical and mental. You will be disappointed, and not everything will work out. There will be times when you will have no answers, mainly questions and orders. The key is to not let the trials and struggles in your life take away your drive and motivation to see it all through. So I've been through a lot over the last, I would say, six or 7 years. Actually, 16 for 6 or 7 years, about 20 years ago. Started about 20 years ago. In 2001, I had two small children. I was married at the time, and I found a lump, and it was discovered in May of 2001 that I had breast cancer. Um, and it was at stage 2. So people always ask me, how did I feel when I was told that I had breast cancer? And the interesting thing is that the tumor was about this size, maybe a little bit smaller than my hand, and it was painful as well. What they said was, um, when they did the sonogram, they said, "Well, it's so big, it should be okay. Don't worry about it." And so I didn't. So the doctor's office called me the next week, and I think they called the house, and then they called me at work. And it had been about a week since they called me. And so I hadn't responded because, like I said, my kids were in elementary school. So it was a 5-year-old and 10-year-old, and they were uh, they were my life. So I was thinking of them and taking care of life stuff and doing things. They said it was nothing to think about, so I didn't. I just didn't. I just went on with my life. So I get this call at work, and I'm told that I have stage 2 breast cancer. And I'm also told that I need to have surgery immediately because they tested it. I mean, they did the sonogram first, and then they did the surgery, the first surgery. So went, had the first surgery that next week. So when I got the call, I got off the phone, and I was in a cubicle. I was working in the IT field at the time. I was a technical writer, and I told the people in my cubicle, it was 6 of us, I turned to them and I told them, I have breast cancer. And I said it just like I said it right now. I didn't cry. I didn't really say anything. And they all freaked out. They went, found our supervisor who came and said, "Do you need to go home?" I said, "Yes, I need to go home. Um, and actually, I need to go get my sons." And my father worked at the school as a treasurer. So I was going to talk to him. So they were asking me if I want to be driven home. And I said, no, I'm going to drive. The whole while I was thinking, okay, I have breast cancer. And this is what was literally going on in my mind. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I have breast cancer. Okay. All right. So I go to the school. I go into my father's office. I sit down, and I just said to him, I have breast cancer. And he said, okay. He said, what's next? And I said, well, I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow. And what was decided was that they would have the surgery. I think I had that surgery either the end of that week or the beginning of the next week. And they did what's called a quarteroscopy. They took a quarter of my breast tissue out and tested around and um, the tumor itself. And so they found that there was nothing around it, but they said, and I'm sorry, they took the tumor out, found out that it was breast cancer, but um, they did a second surgery, and that's what I'm talking about now. The second surgery was they wanted to go around the area that they had already taken the tumor out. So they took the tumor out, took the other tissue around it, and found that there was no tissue there. I mean, no cancer there. They also did a body scan while I was asleep to test and figure out if there was any other part in my body. Um, I also went to a cancer coordinator that you go to talk about the process and what could possibly happen. So this lady was very nice. She gave me a lot of information, things that could happen, um, how to talk to family, information about different groups and things, people you can talk to, all of that. So as she was telling me everything, my response to her was, okay. And she finally said, "Do you have a church, or do you have family in the area?" And I said, "Yes, my parents and my brother, and um, I have a lot of family, and I have a church family." She said, "Yeah, because you sound like you're sounding like a person with faith." And that's why I'm saying all this to you. Now, I did have one more surgery. I had a um, reduction was my was the way that they did. I can't remember that word that they use to fix when you have surgery for breast cancer. Mine was a reduction instead of adding in. So I had that. The first surgery was in end of May. Second surgery was in June. Last surgery was in August. And I returned to work on September 11th, 2001. That was my first day back at work. So, yes, that was an interesting portion of the year for me. Um, I found myself in a state of faith. That's really how I handled it, because I felt like no matter what happened, I would be okay and my sons would be okay. And that's all that really mattered to me. I had a lot of support from my parents, my brother and sister in law, church family, extended family. I had a lot of support. But what I kept saying was, I've got to have normalcy. My mother in law at the time lived in Tennessee, and she asked if she could have the boys come to her and stay with her while I go through the surgeries. And that was the first time I cried, because I wanted things to be normal. I didn't want them to feel like things were different. To this day, the one that was 5 doesn't remember that whole time. And I'm glad, because it could have been a very scary situation. And I feel like when you have faith, it kind of tempers or carries down the fear. Fear is normal. Being scared is normal. I've been saying this the last couple of days. I have an app called I Am. I Am. And this app is um, it gives you affirmations every couple of hours. And I was feeling kind of some kind of way on Tuesday. Not bad, but not great either. And when I saw that, I said, God, I am scared. I'm scared about what's going on right now because it's out of my comfort zone. And that's what happens when change comes. But that's also what happens when good stuff is on the way. And that's what I want to remind you of, that even though 2020 was insane, it was absolutely crazy to be in a house and not be allowed to leave it. That was an interesting feeling. I was at that time I was teaching, and the idea of not being able to help my students through this was horrible. I was glad when I was able to get online and talk to them about it. But prior to that, we weren't even able to do that. It was just insane. So that year, 2001. So this is my 20th year as a breast cancer survivor. And let me just say that I dealt with survivor's guilt for years. I felt, because so many lost their fight and so many lost their hair, and um all of my processes that I went through were surgery. So I did not have um radiation or chemo, and that was because they said that my chances of getting it again would change the longer that I was cleared. And 5 years was my starting point. And the way that the time that it would have taken, and the fact that my boys were so small, I figured I'd just take my chances. And if it came back, then of course I would do the chemo and the radiation. But so for that time, I didn't do it. So because of that, I felt guilty. I felt guilty for surviving. I felt guilty that I did not have such um I didn't lose my hair. I didn't but I lost time. I had pain. I endured pain probably for 2 years after the surgeries, because the muscles in anybody that has any kind of surgery that cuts muscles away, there's a certain amount of pain that returns, and it's a healing process. But it doesn't take away from the pain, and that was kind of rough too. Um, but from 2001 to 2007, the breast cancer had 3 surgeries. A year later, I had a hysterectomy. I was 36. Um, I had a car accident the next year, and my back went out 2 weeks later, sending me home and under chiropractor's care for 8 weeks. This is after the 3 surgeries. I also went through separation and divorce, and I helped to care for my dad for the last couple of years of his life. Um, and he passed away the year after I divorced. But something I want you to know and understand, that even in the midst of trials, God always comes through and gives us reason to keep going. So, like I said, I had all of these trials in a span of about 6 years. In the middle of that, around 2004, I decided to go back to school and get my MBA. So I got my Master of Business Administration with a specialization in technology management in 2006. In July of 2006, my dad and the rest of my immediate family watched me walk down the aisle and receive my MBA in Phoenix, Arizona, at the University of Phoenix. 1 year later, in July of 2007, my dad died. But he got to see me get that MBA. He was able to get his bachelor's degree, but he wasn't able to get his master's. To watch me do it was really his success. To watch me do it was that thing that kept me going and gave me the courage to keep going. I can't tell you any special thing that I did to get through that period and other times in my life. And I'll talk about other stuff that I've been through. All I can say is that if you hold to God's promises, be real about your mental pain, and this is true, don't stop yourself from being hurt, from feeling the hurt, from understanding what you are going through, how it affects your physical pain, and grieve your losses. Grieve that loss. It's important. It is so important. I'm glad that I started my program the month of Mental Health Month. I'm glad because it's so important. People lose sight. And I did that. I did that for years. I lost sight of how important mental strength is. I didn't pay attention to it. Actually, I didn't value myself enough for it. How many of you do that? You don't value yourself enough to do for you. Stop that right now. Stop it, please. This is one of my favorite scriptures in the Bible. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault. Can you believe that? We have a God in our life who will do for us even if we were wrong. Unconditional. God is God is unconditional in his feeling toward you. Mm. And it will be given to you. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt. Because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double minded and unstable in all they do. Believers in humble circumstances ought to take pride in their high position. You ever thought about that? It said believers in humble circumstances. That means believers who don't have a whole lot or who's having a whole lot happen to them. That's what it's talking about. Take pride in their high position. So if you don't have a whole lot, you're actually in a pretty high position. But the rich should take pride in their humiliation, since they will pass away like a wild flower. That's James 2:10, James 1, 2 through 10. That's the New English version. I mean, New International Version. Um, and also James 1, blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. When tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. God is not tempting you. God might allow things to happen, but it's always for a reason. It's not because he's trying to get you to do bad things. That's not it. But that God knows where he expects you to be. God knows where you are going to be in his eyes. And there's a process that we have to go through. We have to build our courage. We have to build our strength. And the only way we can do that, can you build your courage and strength if everything is happening great? Maybe. But I know that my strength and my courage has been built to a point of total trust and faith in God through my trials. Through my trials. So it is interesting that um, I decided to talk about this story, which included my dad's passing. Um, but this weekend is Memorial Day weekend, and Memorial Day is the honoring. We're not really celebrating. We're honoring and memorializing veterans who died, veterans who are no longer with us, those who either died during war or those who served. And my dad served in the Air Force for 4 years. Oh, he used to have it down to the minute. He did a whole, I'm gonna say it wrong, but he did a whole term, or a whole, he served his whole time, which was 4.5 years, something like that. And he was proud to say that he had served. And I was proud to be able to show him in uniform. And it was right before he started dating my mom. So it's really a kind of cool thing to consider. So I want to be sure to let you all know that trials are going to come. The key is letting it not take over the rest of you. Let it come. Rely on God, rely on family, rely on your faith, and then move on, because that really is your trust in Him taking care of you the next time, because there will be a next time. It is an honor and a blessing for me to come to you and talk to you. I hope that this was helpful. I hope and I pray that you find a way to hold on, to keep going, to not let the things that have happened. There have been people who have lost jobs during this time. Um, I know that some of the restaurants are struggling because they people aren't coming back to work, and whether for whatever reason people aren't coming back, but people are doing different things, and I think there's a reason for that, because it's time. It's time. There's always a time for change. I'm believing that, because that's what I'm doing right now. So God be with you all. Please, 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 please keep coming. Keep chatting. I'm sorry I didn't have my chat open. I apologize for that, but I will answer any of the comments that I see once I get off here. All right. Thank you so much for being with me today. God bless you.